Maximum of 5 questions for the broadcast section each, and maximum of 3 each in the embargoed section, please. Jeremy Langdon, do you want to kick us off from Sky?
Yeah, hi. Morning, Eddie. How are you doing?
Morning, Jeremy.
Eddie, first of all, any fresh team news, injury news coming out of the Newcastle match for Old Trafford?
Got a couple of players we need to check today, Jeremy. We'll see how they are before we name our squad.
Can you say who they are?
No.
Obviously, Newcastle on Wednesday was a horrendous result, and then going home, Eddie, and seeing West Ham beat Chelsea must have been a hammer blow. What was it like watching that?
The only thing I really concentrated on that night was our performance against Newcastle, not West Ham. I think that's always out of our control. We have 6 games left. My energy is on my team and what we deliver.
Steve Cook said after Newcastle that you played like kids and it was embarrassing. What did you make of comments like that coming from Steve Cook?
Listen, I don't think they're helpful for us. I think when you don't perform well, I think everything needs to be internal. That's always been how I've worked. We keep things in-house, and our opinions of ourselves stay that way. Now, I have a duty when I come to the media to tell the truth in the respect of what I think of our performances. But I don't think it's healthy to view ourselves or read ourselves in that way. So I think for the collective good of the group and the club, we know recent performances haven't been good enough. I don't think we need to be too clever to work that out. But certainly staying together and staying unified and staying positive with each other vocally is hugely important. Nothing can change the past. We can only change the future. And the only way we're going to do that is to stay with each other.
Eddie, there are still 18 points to play for, and it's not over by a long way. But at the same time, 1 point from the last 21 is relegation form, and the upcoming 6 games look really, really tough. A lot of people say you're doomed. How are you going to get out of this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are certainly welcome to their opinion, and a lot of outsiders, probably a huge percentage of people, will say we're done, we're finished. But historically at this club, that's always been the way in many different aspects. We've been written off, and we've managed to overcome that mindset. And against the odds, we've come through and achieved great things. And we're going to have to call on all of those resources now. 1 point in 21, I think you said. 1 point in 7 games is nowhere near what we need. But the beautiful thing about that is the past. And although the 6 games we have are very difficult on paper, sometimes that can bring out the best in us. So I'm still very much with the team. I'm still very much on the positive mindset that we can do it. But certainly we're going to have to elevate everything to a new level from what we've seen in the last few games.
Can I ask you too, Eddie? You are the longest serving manager in the Premier League, but are you fearing the sack at the moment?
Fearing the sack is not helpful and productive in any way. What am I going to do? Sit at home and worry about my future? No, I'm going to try and make the team play better and try and focus all my energies on what we deliver on the training ground, how I speak to my players. I'm a realist. I know that football is about results. Doesn't matter how long you've been at a football club, you need to win games. But I can only affect what I'm doing right now.
Just finally, your last away win was at Chelsea way back in December. You've not taken an away point this year. You're going to need a spectacular result like that, aren't you? Very quickly now, starting at Old Trafford, do you think?
Yes, we are. And we're a better place to start than tomorrow. And that's the mindset we need going into this match.
Good luck, Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Paul Belverson, PLP.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi, Paul.
That win at Stamford Bridge came after, I think you'd lost 5 straight games. You're currently losing 4 straight games. Are there any similarities in the confidence levels and the mood, everything from going to Stamford Bridge where no one really expected you to get much and what's happening right now?
I think the magnitude of the game is very similar. I think probably the feeling of where we are is quite similar. I remember that day that we absolutely fought for everything in every level from minute 1 to the end. We stayed in the game, and I think that was probably the key thing. We came under pressure. I think our goalkeeper made a couple of great saves, and then we had the quality at the other end that day to be a real counter-attack threat. So, yeah, we'd look to that game and go, we need all of those mental qualities that we showed, those physical qualities that we showed, and the technical qualities, because in the end, we ended up having a very good game.
On Wednesday against Newcastle, your players know how to defend. They know that they can't leave opponents as much space as they did. What can you say when you're analysing the footage of that with them in the room and you're going through those things?
I think you've got to be very careful, Paul, because what we don't want to do with the turnaround in the games 2 days, 3 days before a game or in between games is to go too negative with the players. That's not going to help them in any way. Of course, you have to be realistic and you have to let players know what's expected and how they've performed. But in terms of dissecting a performance like that, sometimes it's better left and you're better off focusing on the next one. At this stage with where we are, I think a positive outlook on the future is much better than looking back in the past.
You were out very quickly for your media duties on Wednesday. The players stayed behind. One of the loudest voices in there was apparently Artur Boruc. Now, I know you weren't in there, but I wondered what you felt that meant about his qualities, that a player who's approaching the end of his career, hasn't played this season, still cares so passionately that he stands up and says a few things like it is.
Yeah, I think you've got to be very careful before jumping to too many conclusions about after game things that have happened internally. I spoke at length with the players after Wolves for a long, long time. And after this game, with the quick turnaround in games, as I said, I wanted to keep my message to the players very simple. I know the players stayed in the dressing room and had a discussion. Just referencing Artur, he's an outstanding professional, an outstanding individual, and he does care deeply about the club and the results we've been having. So no surprise that he would be prepared to speak. But this is nothing abnormal. A group of players talking about the game and talking about what we have to do in the future.
And I mentioned the Chelsea game as a potential positive. You also beat United at home earlier this season. What was the key that day?
Staying in the game again. Manchester United started that game very well, and we hung in there and then ended up having a really good performance. But the early stages of the game is very important. We were resolute defensively.
And how much better are they from what you've seen and analysed right now to where they were 6 months ago?
Yeah, I think they're a very strong team, and they're developing from their perspective very nicely. They've signed some top quality players, and I think their momentum is certainly with them at the moment.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. James Savundra from TalkSport.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Eddie, how much are you using that victory against Man United earlier this season and the victory at Stamford Bridge as a source of motivation ahead of this game tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's important that we see that we've done it before and we can do it again. I think with the fixtures that we have, it's very difficult to look at them as a group of fixtures, and I think that's a very dangerous thing. I think individually you just have to focus on each one, and the first one is Manchester United. And historically, if you look at our journey in the Premier League, we've always been able to pick up big results against big teams, and ultimately at the end of the season they have made the difference. We're going to need to do that again, probably at a greater scale than we've ever done before, but it is possible. And if it's possible, we have to believe we can do it.
You spoke earlier about needing to stay in the game. You conceded early against Newcastle and against Palace. Just how important will the start of the game be? And why has it maybe been so difficult so far since the restart to get off to a good start?
Yeah, I mean, I think the start of the game is going to be hugely important because these games are hard enough, but if you give yourself an even harder challenge by conceding early, certainly at the moment, in those two games that you mentioned, it knocked our confidence and we never fully recovered. So yes, we need a good start to the game. There's no doubt about that. We need to imprint ourselves and our strengths on the game, and we need to defend with the right mindset. I'll be urging my players to do that, and I think we're capable of doing it.
You've said constantly that you believe in your players, but Bournemouth have now lost 16 of the last 21 Premier League matches. Do you still think the quality is there?
Yeah, I think the quality is there. I've got no doubt about that. That record isn't good enough. I'm not going to hide from it. well aware of it. I'll take it on the chin myself. But no, I do believe in the players, and I do believe we're much, much better than that.
And you've said in recent days that the squad have maybe struggled with that burden of expectation. So going to Old Trafford tomorrow, do the players maybe need to play without fear, with a nothing to lose mentality?
Yes, I think that would be what we would hope the players would do, but it's much easier said than done. I think it's my job to try and translate that to the players so they play with the freedom that they need to express themselves. Ultimately, I think if you think you've got good players, you just want them to play to the levels you know they're capable of. And I think if you look at the 3 games we've had, we haven't played to those capabilities. So first and foremost, before you start talking about results and everything else, to see that return, I think that's the most important thing. And then I think the results would follow.
And just finally from me, you've been here since 2012. You've achieved a huge amount of success. But do you think that once this season is done, regardless of what happens, whether you stay in the Premier League or you go down to the Championship, that it would be an opportunity to assess your future here at the club?
To be honest, all those types of questions are absolutely redundant to me right now and permanently while I'm manager of the club, because my focus when I'm managing the team is to take the team beyond where we are now, always thinking about the future and how the club looks beyond this moment in years to come. That's what I'm paid to do, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. We'll go on to Ed Elliott from the Press Association.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
You've not criticised your players, and you said after Newcastle that it wasn't down to a lack of effort. But are you looking for them to take more responsibility, particularly on the pitch? Because it seems like there are conversations in the dressing room where they are taking responsibility.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think the conversations and things in the dressing room should stay in the dressing room. I don't think that's relevant really at the moment. I think we have to go and deliver on the pitch, as you say. I think that's the most important thing. Talking is great, but talking doesn't win football matches. We need to go out and show the right mentality, put the ability together with the mentality, and let all our talking show there.
And you talked about confidence being the issue as well. Once the game starts, and for example, if you do go a goal behind, what can you actually do on the touchline to affect the game? Because it is really down to the players. Yeah,
my work is mainly done during the week and pre-game. During the game, we are obviously limited to what you see: substitutes, drinks break, 1 minute chats. You know, it's half-time is obviously different. You can influence the game again. So it's all those things that you see that everyone knows. But as manager, you take responsibility for everything. And that's the way it should be, and it has to be, and it will continue to be. So I know my work, for whatever reason, hasn't been good enough. Together with the players, we fight on and try and turn that around.
And you talked about keeping things positive, but how much has the word relegation been used in the dressing room? How much is that a factor in team talks and just general conversations?
Certainly from my side, look, have I used the word as a way of trying to motivate and to try and get more out of the players? Yes, of course. It's there, it's hanging over us. So I think to ignore it would be foolish. Have we overused it? No, I don't think so, because again, that can have negative connotations. So it's about winning games of football, and the players want to hear simple messages. So that's what we've tried to do.
And just finally, most Premier League teams would probably take a point at Old Trafford. You get to win there. Given the contrasting form between the teams since the restart, would you take a point from this game, or is it all about wins now?
First and foremost, I'd take a very, very good performance. I think if we get that first, as I said, I think the results will follow. So I'll take a very, very good performance. If that comes with a win, that's obviously the ideal. I think we go into every game to win. There's no intention for us to do any different. I don't think we can do with only 6 games left.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Joe Glanville from Fire Radio.
Good morning, Eddie.
Morning.
You've mentioned the difficulties that you've faced in not sort of having crowd support in these games which you've been trailing at home. Conversely, you're going to Old Trafford when obviously there's not going to be that crowd there. Does that in any way give you a slight advantage that there isn't that home support for them? And can you sort of explain how that experience is going to be?
Well, it's very difficult to know how that experience will be before we've gone there. I think just looking at the one game we have had away at Wolves, I thought we did compete well. We did stay in the game. One moment of quality took the game away from us in a game that was very little between the two teams. So, yeah, that's the only experience we have to draw on. We now go to Old Trafford. First and foremost, we have to deal with the players of Manchester United and impose ourselves on them. I think the crowd will, for us, I think where we've missed the crowd the most has been when we're trailing in a game at home, and we've got to create the energy and momentum to try and get back in the game. And I think that's where we've missed our supporters, who traditionally for us have always made a difference, especially in the second half of matches.
And what's the mood in the camp like ahead of the game?
I think there was obviously a feeling when we came in on Thursday morning of disappointment. Huge disappointment at the way we'd performed and the result. Very quickly, though, you have to shake that out of your system, because you know you're going to go and play Manchester United, and then if you hold any of that energy with you, then it's not going to be productive for you. So we've had to quickly regroup. We're now ready and focused for the next match.
When you've sort of had these defeats following the restart of the league, but there's more games coming up thick and fast as a result of the restart, is this a positive for you for the players to just get back out there and try and perform and try and get results rather than having to wait weeks at a time?
I think if you don't perform, your preference would be to have a game very quickly. So hopefully that's a positive for us, because you can use all of that pain and feeling of frustration in a positive way. And we've got to turn all of those feelings into positives for us. And
since the club's been promoted to the Premier League, you've not really experienced a relegation battle as such. Is that a positive? How do you sort of see that in terms of these final games of the season and trying to get as many points on the board as possible?
Yeah, I've said many times, I think, although we haven't necessarily been in the bottom places of the division, we have been, I think, in a relegation battle near enough in every season. Our future's only been secured very late in every season, with maybe a game or two to spare. So yes, we haven't evidently been in there from the outside, but from the inside it's been very tight. Hopefully those experiences and that feelings we've had in previous seasons will serve us well. Having to deal with the pressure and play well in difficult moments and in pressure games, we've always found a way previously to dig out a result when we've needed it. This is probably the toughest test we've had, and that's where I'm going to ask the players to dig really deep for me and for the club.
And finally, what are your thoughts ahead of, I suppose, your games following Manchester United? You've got City, Spurs, Leicester, and then you've got Derby with Southampton as well. It's a tricky set of fixtures. What are your thoughts on that?
It's great, isn't it? What a great run of fixtures to embrace the challenge and try and get over the line.
Thanks, Eddie.
No problem.
Thanks, Joe. That brings to an end the broadcast section. If we go into the embargoed section now.